The Slayer class isn't bad, it just does not have the system support to really shine. And neither does the Investigator. Hey everyone, Utkarsh from Spirit Bell Games here. A few months ago, the playtest was released for the Slayer class, a class that fixates on researching a monster, hunting it down, and then incorporating pieces of it into their arsenal for future hunts. In theory, this sounds like a great fantasy that can fulfill all of the desires for you to be playing Monster Hunter the video game in Pathfinder, or The Witcher in Pathfinder, or even something like Bloodborne in Pathfinder. In reality, the Slayer gets outshone by the Thaumaturge in almost every actual adventure. And the problem here is that the Slayer is designed for a very specific type of adventure, something that I have in previous videos called the Witcher type adventure, or the OSR style adventure, which is a prepared form of adventuring. And even within that prepared form, the Slayer benefits from a structured sort of adventuring where there are these fixed objective hunts where you know the target that you can research and then mark as your quarry, hunt, incorporate, and then be certain that you will be going on future hunts of this exact type. It's funny to me that the Slayer came out this year when last year I put out 3 different hunts called the Warden's Hunt, specifically to make the Ranger shine over the Thaumaturge. And it also involved a lot of these components, this type of research, kill, incorporate. And I made those adventures because I did not find that those types of adventures exist in the adventure paths and the Pathfinder Society scenarios that I have seen so far. Let me know if your experience is different. Do you see these kind of templated hunts being played out in the kinds of game you play? Because again, from my experience in any of the Paizo materials and in any of the homebrew stuff that I have played in, these aren't very common. This is why I felt like I should make something like this so that it exists. Because without this type of adventure, the Slayer falls flat where the Thaumaturge thrives. Because the Thaumaturge was made for the spontaneous style of adventuring. You encounter a monster for the first time and you have to kill it within the next minute. Well, what do? You exploit vulnerability, and then that lets you not only learn more about the monster with diverse lore, which of course you will have taken, but also it gives you the monster's weaknesses, which you can also then apply without having done any preparation beforehand. How can this class that excels in spontaneous encounters with various monsters not also excel in prepared combats with various monsters? My solution with the Warden's Hunt was to have aspects of researching the monster that the Thaumaturge doesn't just easily, esoteric lore their way into. For example, by studying the animal's hunting patterns, by finding out its favored meat, by setting a snare or a baited trap for the creature. And then also to give these monsters, these existing monsters in the monster core, additional vulnerabilities that aren't just damage weaknesses. But this is a lot of effort that I have to do, basically that any GM would have to do if they wanted to engage in this kind of Monster Hunter storytelling. That should not be the case. These adventures, these special vulnerabilities, the thrill of monster hunting, the trail of clues, all of that should be provided to us by Paizo in adventures that they publish. So the core problem that I see with the Slayer is that it does not have the adventure type supported that it excels in, whereas something like the Thaumaturge can excel in all adventuring types because it excels in the spontaneous adventuring types. And Pathfinder 2nd edition as a design will not allow a class to punch above the power ceiling, the shared power ceiling that all classes have. If this was allowed, then perhaps the Slayer could be given advantages with preparation that significantly break through this power ceiling. Alas, this is the situation we're left with. And there's a similar sort of dissatisfaction that I feel with the Investigator too. Now, my initial urge is to say that, okay, the Investigator does not feel as satisfying as the Rogue, because the Investigator relies on the adventure being a mystery, and not all adventures are mysteries, which is true. Not all adventures are mysteries in the canonical tonal sense. But every adventure has some elements of exploration. Most adventures have some amount of clue finding or just following up on different threads until the question at the heart of it is resolved. So it's not that there are no investigation pieces within existing adventures that makes the Investigator feel unsatisfactory. Well, what is it then? I think one of the issues is that every adventure or mystery has to be solvable whether or not an investigator is present. So there's nothing about the investigator's special skill set that makes them mandatory or feel especially powerful when they're on an investigation. Usually it is just the +1, later on +2 to the skill checks that they make. So here, the solution is not to have more adventures that are more explicitly mysteries. I think here the solution is to have a more granular investigation system that is at least like a fragment as deep and engaging as Pathfinder 2e's combat. Because then, with that granularity, you can give the investigator specific levers to pull during investigation that other characters don't have. And so even if the investigation is broadly solvable by everyone, the investigator can get those shortcuts or those special abilities that make them shine. Now, wherever I see gaps like these exist, I feel a strong urge to just make up some of my own stuff. And there is an investigation subsystem playtest up on my Patreon and being playtested in the Discord. But I would rather not have to make these, right? I would rather not have to go through all of the different skill feats and the investigator class feats and tie them to this subsystem, because I am a fundamentally lazy GM who wants Paizo to just give all of these things to me. This is why I play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because for a lazy GM, the system does most of the work for me, at least when it comes to combat and treasure rewards, but not when it comes to investigation. Why not give us something a little more detailed and crunchy that we can sink our teeth into? And you know what? While you're at it, make a monster hunting subsystem too. Make some explicit ways for players to be able to follow the monster's trail, and systematic ways for them to get useful parts out of a monster's corpse. Don't rely on Battle Zoo or, heavens forbid, like my Warden's Hunt to write out like the parts that player characters can extract from a monster. These things should be in the monster core or some other supplement that complements the monsters in the monster core, but they should be first party. So to you, the listener, who probably isn't working for Paizo, if you're interested in these things, yes, you can check out my Patreon or come to the Discord, and I'll probably be running a playtest within the next couple of weeks again for exploration, monster hunting, and the investigation subsystems. But really, my actual ask is to go to Reddit and the Pathfinder forums or whatever other channels that Paizo listens to and tell them that you would like something more crunchy when it comes to investigating a monster or investigating a mystery, and that the Slayer, the Investigator, and skill feats in general should tie into these subsystems. Because I trust Paizo designers a lot more than I trust my solo development locked in this small room. So whatever they come up with is definitely going to be better than whatever I put out. Until they do, though, we are stuck with whatever we come up with. So let me know down in the comments what kind of interesting ways you come up with to run investigations, whether it's like monster-centered investigations or mystery-centered investigations. And also, let me know if I'm wrong about the types of adventures that Paizo puts out. Now, for example, if you have played adventures where a Slayer type character can thrive across the various levels, then I want to know down below that these exist and that my experience maybe is just too narrow to see how this class can shine. For now, this is me signing off, wishing you all engaging games.